Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 972 for the 22nd of October. And again, a lot of frontline changes and things had happened over in Ukraine, and yeah. But this time around, we have a bit more good news for the Ukrainian, pro-Ukrainian side or the Ukrainian supporters. So stay tuned. So we're gonna start off. Let's do this time round. Let's do anti-clockwise direction. No, mix things up. No, make things less boring. And over at the Kherson front, Kherson front is very boring. I mean, there's shelling reported Antonivka and Krelivka. Yeah, Hrevlivka. And there is fighting reported in the Dnieper direction, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. Not exactly what they mean, because Dnieper directions is like super huge. Right, so yeah, but whatever it is, that's all from the Kherson front. Shelling is also reported across the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant at Ilinka. So not sure what that's about. Over at the Zaporizhzhia front, this is Zaporizhzhia front. So this is the Kayamsky sector, Orikhiv sector, and the Huaypole sector. So at the Orikhiv sector, there is a Russian attack at Malatomashka as well as in Robotine. The information is coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and the Russian Defense Ministry. Robotine is owned by the Ukrainians. So there must be some major actions around Malatomashka, but there is zero information about what exactly is happening. So the operational secrecy over here is pretty strong. I believe that is most likely around this highway region. So if I zoom in a bit, I believe that the actions is around here, where the Russians are maybe pushing across the highway. I think this is where the fighting is, rather than going into Malatomashka itself. So let's wait and see if we have any more information. So moving out of the Zaporizhzhia front, we go into the Donetsk front. So at the Donetsk front, we have a few front lines. So we have the Velika Novosilka sector, and then the I don't know what to call this. No, Vuhledar sector or no whatever sector, Bohofyevlenka sector, and then we have the Kharkiv sector as well as this Khernik region or the Khernik sector. So over at the Velika Novosilka sector, we have only fighting reported around the Velika Novosilka region. That's next door, so I think it probably more makes sense if I do this. So Russians attacking in the direction of Velika Novosilka. There is fighting reported at Zolota Neva, towards Shatarsky and towards Novoyukrenka. So this is pretty usual, but as you can see, it's basically the entire front line that is under there's currently actions. We move into this region here. I haven't decided what to call this sector, but yeah, I usually call this the Vodiane Konstantinivka sector. Russian forces are still continuing to attack across this entire region, with the Russian forces capturing ground in the south of Bohofyevlenka as they continue to attack towards Bohofyevlenka. There's fighting reported in the region of Vodiane. They're fighting reported in Katerinivka as the Russian forces have captured half of the settlement already. And with the latest geolocation, Russian forces has entered into Antonivka. So this is particularly important because the Russian forces have been literally geolocated within Antonivka, and they have basically captured ground and have a foothold now inside Antonivka. And this comes after yesterday Russian forces geolocated in the north of Katerinivka in a surprise geolocation, which means that the Russians have basically penetrated and taken at least half of Katerinivka already, which will mean that the Russians will now be able to pincer the Ukrainian forces. This is going to force Ukrainian forces to run away, so to a more defendable position, or they'll get hit from the behind, and that's going to be quite painful. So, but I do not know. You guys who experience getting attacked from behind probably will know better. I do not know. I just assumed it's going to be painful. Some enjoy it though, and so anyway, then they like rainbow stuff. So over at the Kharkiv sector, we don't have any more information or no reports about fighting in this sector. We move into the Khernik region. So at the Khernik sector, there's fighting reported in the Khernik region as well as in Zoriane, where the Russian Defense Ministry already announced a capture on the 19th of October. There's fighting reported in the Hostre region as well. Geolocation of Russian forces in the east of Alexandropil was reported by the Ukrainian side, but that's about it. So definitely this is as I mentioned in the previous SITREP, this is the toothpaste where they're trying to squeeze it out. So let's see how this goes. And then over in this Sukharini region, the Russian forces have expanded control around this area here. In the latest mapping by the Ukrainian side, Russian forces have captured a huge amount of grounds in Sukharini, and basically confirmed the capture of Sukharini. In fact, I should have mapped this. I should update this. Russian forces captured Sukharini. So this is confirmed. I typed too fast. Yeah, no. So Russian forces captured Sukharini, and so they are now moving in the direction of Novodimitrivka, which we do have the reports from the Ukrainian side of the Russians attacking in that direction. So that is the one of the major captures in the past 24 hours. There's more. This is not the only one. So this is Sukharini. As you can see, the entire farm or industrial area on the western part of Sukharini is now fully captured by the Russian forces. Over in the Selydove region, we have finally some updates in the Battle of Selydove. Russian forces have expanded control in the north with geolocation of Russian forces attacking from the north. They have straightened the front line a bit in the east, and they have entered into the Dacha region on the eastern part. So let me zoom in a bit, we can see a bit clearer. So the Russian forces most likely have captured the entire Dacha over in the Mikhailivka region, and they have entered into Selydove from the east on the southern side. In the northern side, there is also geolocation of Russian forces confirming that they have entered in the northeast as well. So this is a dual direction attack across the entire eastern front line of Selydove. This is going to take some time. I think the Ukrainians are going to hold Selydove for in a very strong way, just like in Toske. So let's continue to see how this continue to develop in the Battle of Selydove. This straighten of front line is based on the Ukrainian mapping, and in the northern part there is geolocation of Russian forces in this tree line, which is kind of a surprise. I'm not sure how they get there. Most likely the front line looks a bit like this right now, with the Russian forces, dipping it in this way. So, which means that the Russians will initiate another flanking operation, attacking the rear in the northwestern direction. And this is going to be extremely complicated for the Ukrainians to handle, as the Russians attack in this direction, hitting the rear position to cut off the retreat route, forcing Ukrainians to retreat towards Vishneve, and as the Russians continue to squeeze them over from the east. There is previously some frontline claims in the south, but I believe the Russians is going to do another push coming from the south sometime in the near future. But with these two attacks, the Ukrainians is going to face a lot of problems at Selydove. So that's the current situation at Selydove. In the Pokrov front, at the Pokrov direction, Russian forces are fighting in the region of Promin, Menokhrad, as well as Lysivka. Ukrainian forces actually counterattack over at Krutya, and they actually captured some grounds around here. So the geolocation, there's geolocation. In fact, I should actually map this. Is Krasnaya, Krutya? No, let's put it as a Krutya. But that's, yeah, I think we need to put this in case it gets very confusing. So so that we have a record of this attack. So Ukrainian forces have been geolocated on the trench line after they first retaken this tree line. So the Ukrainians are now on the counter attack, and they're pushing towards Krasnaya and Krutya. So let's wait and see how far the Ukrainian counter attack can go. So the Russians have the settlement; they have captured Krasnaya and Krutya. So let's see how this goes. So this is according to the information, was units of airborne assault armored vehicles of the armed forces of Ukraine attacking. So let's see how this goes. It's interesting that the Ukrainians are on the counter in this area here. Otherwise, the general trend is still the Russians are on the offensive in the Promin, Menokhrad, as well as the Lysivka direction. Over in the northern flank of the Pokrov front, there is fighting only reported in the Mario-Lyubivka, and that's about it. So that's all from the Pokrov front. Actually, it's only like that. This is the Pokrov front. So we move into the New York front. This is the New York front. At the New York front, there is only fighting reported in Skibinivka. This is the only report that we have from the Russian Defense Ministry, but that's all we have, which is interesting. The lack of reporting about fighting at Torex. Yeah, curious. So that's all from New York front. Over at the Bakhmut front, we have fighting reported in the central region. There is fighting reported towards Mayske, shelling is reported at Mykolaiivka and towards Pishchane. There's not much details, so there's nothing much around here. For those that are looking at the mappings daily or whatever, I did clean up the entire Adivka front. So most of the icons I've already deleted because I don't think that I think that it's just to clean up a bit. And I don't think the Russians, the Ukrainians are going to counterattack to the point where we're going to go back to the old regions. So just to make the map more legible. Over in the northern edge of the the Bakhmut front, Russian forces are fighting at Vasyukivka and towards Bodarne. There is probably shelling or an attack in the direction of Pazeno, which is also known as a Petrovskoye, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So this is interesting. Vasyukivka is mentioned by the Ukrainians. Bodarne also reported by the Ukrainians. The Russians only mentioned by Petrovskoye. So we shall see whether this becomes some kind of offensive. So because this is also one of the directions. Like I always think that the Russians should attack in this direction. Capture right Oleksandrivka, push up towards Zakine or Zerne, capture the crossing, and the entire Sivers front will be encircled. But the thing is that the Russians never do it because. So over at the Sivers front, Russian forces are fighting in the region of Srebrenka as well as Sivers. So no idea exactly how or these just shelling reports. So that's all from Sivers. We move into the Kreminna front. So this is the Kreminna front, and this is Kreminna front. This Kreminna front, and major updates regarding this region. So Russian forces shelled Krasny Liman. Fighting is reported at Torske, Terny, and Novosadove. However, the Russian forces captured Novosadove, and this is confirmed. The information is the announcement is by the Russian Defense Ministry, and the Ukrainian mapping actually confirmed this capture, which is a surprise to me because that is pretty prompt. Russian forces in the Ukrainian mapping is mapped to be like this, capturing huge amount of grounds, totally securing the eastern part of Novosadove. The entire region is, in the map by the Ukrainian mapping is almost 15 square kilometers captured. Very, very huge amount of grounds. So this definitely didn't happen over 24 hours. This definitely have happened. Like the capture of the grounds have been happening, and it was not reported until the past 24 hours. So this is probably what happened. And this continues the trend of Ukrainians losing positions along the Zherebets River. And so this is the Zherebets River. So the Ukrainians have been losing all the settlements along the Zherebets River, and this is going to continue. With the capture of Sadove, the Russians would now be able to attack Terny from the north, causing a pincer operation on Terny, and this would then lead to Yampolivka, and then it'll go for the south to Torske. So this is a disastrous position for the Ukrainians. However, the Ukrainians, of course, could potentially hold the other shoreline of Zherebets River and build a strong defense along it. But whether Ukrainians will do it or able to do it in the face of overwhelming firepower on the Russian side, that it remains to be seen, because the Russians have absolute air superiority right now, and also superior firepower, and not to mention they have sent in North Korean super soldiers, allegedly. So who knows? Over at the Sviatove front, so this is Sviatove, and this is the Sviatove front. And at the Sviatove front, the Russian forces are allegedly attacking over at Novoyekhovka, Kharkivka, as well as Novomihailivka. But that's about it. We do not know much about these areas. And we move further up north, and over at Pishchane front. So this is the Pishchane front, and Yeah. So at the Pishchane front, the Russian forces are fighting the region of Pishchane, Kolesnikivka, Kryakivka, and Lozova. And we finally have some updates coming from Kryakivka, where the main battle at the Pishchane front is currently happening. The Russian forces are trying to capture this crossing. At the Senkove crossing, the Russian forces have expanded their control around Kryakivka. This is mapped by the Ukrainian mapping, confirming Russian control over most of Kryakivka. Ukrainian forces most likely is holding up over in the forest and probably some of the houses in the southern part of the settlement. And the Russians are now trying to push and take at least one edge of the bridge. This is going to be yeah, I mean, this is not going to make things worse, because the fact that the Russians have half of Kryakivka already make this crossing totally pointless. So the fact that if they are, so the only thing that the Ukrainians can still do is at least they can still, travel down this bridge and reinforce the south. But if the Russians cut off the bridge, then yeah, then they would just make the things worse. So yeah, it is possible to get worse, but this as bad as it is right now, because on a grand macro scale, the northern side at the Kupiansk front and the southern side at the Zherebets front is now broken. There's no more links between, because at the Pishchane region, the Russians have basically cut the Ukrainian lines into two. So we move into the Kupiansk front, and there's only fighting reported in the Petropavlivka region, and that's about it. We do not have any other information. In fact, the arrow I should draw it like this, Petropavlivka. Yeah. So otherwise, we move on into the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, the Kharkiv front, the Russian forces are fighting in the region of Kupiansk, Zaporizhzhia, and Lipsy. Shelling is reported at Ruskaya, Lozova, and that's about it. Pretty normal, nothing special about this. The cross-border raid over at Artine is not mentioned. There's no more fighting regarding here, so this is probably just some harassment. So we move on to the Kursk front. At the Kursk front, so for those that are confused, as usual, yeah, so this is Glushkovo, which is why this is the Glushkovo sector. And then we have the western flank, northern flank, eastern flank, and the southern flank. Southern flank. So in case you are lost. So because we have to break it up, because this is actually a very huge front line. For those that do not know, we are talking about a total front line estimate of over 100 kilometers of front line, 110. So this, and if you go into details, it's actually way more than that. We're talking about a front line maybe 150 kilometers long. So so don't underestimate the Ukrainian success in the Kursk region is actually pretty huge. But the problem is that this all farmlands. Only one major town at Sudja, which is over here. So and the Russians are pushing that back. So this is the main storyline in the Kursk front. Russian forces are still on the counter attack. They are attacking over in Novi Put, Blakovo, Cherkasskaya Konopelka. There is some frontline change over at Kharkiv. We will zoom in later. Ukrainian forces counterattack at Malaya Loknya, as well as in this eastern front. The Russian forces are also pushing in the western flank. So we'll go into the western flank. This Glushkovo sector and the southern flank there's nothing new, nothing special. So we're going to go into this northern part first. So there's a Russian forces geolocated over in the southeast of Kharkiv. So confirming the Russian forces have probably taken, not confirmed, but most likely they have captured this forest southeast of Kharkiv. So that's the important note. And over in the western flank, where the main fighting is currently happening, so Ukrainian forces are attacking Zelenishek, and there is geolocation of Ukrainian forces tank getting destroyed. But that also confirmed that this yellow box here, the Russians have no control over that region. This is, like I mentioned before, this is just open ground. It's impossible for Russia to capture open ground like this. So, and Ukrainian presence just invalidated the point. Ukrainian forces are also counter-attacking over at Nikolaevo Darino, probably trying to flank the Russians, or at least create a diversion, forcing Russian to divert attention down south. The Russians are pushing towards Zeleny Klint, Zeleny Shaik, as well as Novo Ivanovka. The Russian Defense Ministry also mentions Svertiklovo, so they are attacking into this direction as well. So they are doing their own flanking operation. So let's see, how this continue to play out. It is a very tactical battle right now, and they are basically sacrificing each other's troops to the point where they can get the advantage. Tentatively, it's pretty stalemate-ish if you ask me. The front line have not changed in a meaningful way for quite a few weeks already. So very, very interesting battle happening around here, and that's about it. So this is the situation report or the summary for the day of 972 for the 22nd of October. Let me know if you miss my face, or I should just keep my face off the screen, and I'll see you guys in the next update.